McDonald's is one of the most popular and well-known fast food restaurants known in the United States and in the whole world. You see McDonald's everywhere, from the corners of your street to the other side of the world. McDonald's is a global organization that feeds millions of people every single day. It is an inexpensive way to get a quick meal. People go to McDonald's on the way home, to work, any place they need to grab a bite. Of course, every restaurant has its beginning somewhere, and we can trail this multi-billion-dollar industry way back to its humble start in San Bernardino, California, with two brothers, Dick and Maurice McDonald, and an entrepreneur, Ray Kroc.
One of the brothers, Dick, started off with the goal to become a millionaire.
I said, I've decided I'm going to be a millionaire, I says, when I'm 50. So, geez, my brother looked at me, no kidding, he says, how much have you got right now? I says, about $8.50. He says, Richard, you've got a little way to go, my friend.
They started by working on Hollywood sets and soon opened their own movie theater. They noticed that playing movies wouldn't get them to their dreams, but the hot dog stand nearby sure got a lot of business. A few towns away, the brothers decided to open a hot dog stand in 1937. In 1940, they moved to San Bernardino, California, and they opened a drive-thru restaurant called McDonald's. They served with car hop service, and the people enjoyed getting their orders taken without leaving their vehicle. The menu was mainly barbecue items, and the restaurant was a big hit with the local teenagers. They were extremely successful in the business, but 8 years later, they closed down the restaurant for several months to rejuvenate it.
It was after World War II, and the brothers knew that they could be even more successful if they just made some tweaks to their restaurant. Their customers were astonished and wondered why they would close their thriving restaurant.
We were kind of getting into an age of jet propulsion, and this was really a horse and buggy operation. So we knew we had to do something to speed things up.
During that time, since the war was won, people wanted to live the good life. It was the age of speed. People wanted things that were fast and to get things right away. They changed from car hop service to self-service. When they reopened 3 months later, their restaurant was crowded around a single initiative, and it was speed.
Their mascot back then wasn't a clown named Ronald McDonald. It was a little guy named Speedy, a chef with incredibly fast legs. The McDonald brothers have created an assembly line for food, using 3 men to continuously flip burgers, 2 others to make milkshakes, and another 2 fried up the french fries. Mix that up with a packager and some countermen, and the deal is sealed. The idea of going out to eat was that people could order anything they want. But at McDonald's, it was only hamburgers. It was popular with their customers, too. The waiting time to get your order was usually up to 20 minutes. But when McDonald's cut it down to a minute, that was simply amazing.
Their assembly line was styled to literally bring in fast food. This was one of the first restaurants to attempt a quick way to get food to their customers. They put together a kitchen that had larger grills and condiment dispensers to prepare burgers quickly and identical to one another.
Due to remodeling, the food menu that started with 25 purchases became 9 simple and popular food items. And with burgers at only 15 cents, which is half as expensive as standard diners, 10 cents for fries, and 20 cents for milkshakes, the brothers immediately found success in the chain and found themselves opening about 9 more franchises in a matter of a few years.
The McDonald's idea of speed and cheapness was a big hit since America was booming with new families and lots of babies.
Their idea wasn't just new, it was innovational and completely life-changing to the brothers, Ray Kroc, and soon enough, the generations of the future.
The brothers' fateful encounter with Ray Kroc came to be in 1954 and threw their business and ideas into the way of success. When the McDonald's brothers had purchased 8 multi-mixers from Ray Kroc, he became interested in the brothers' assembly line style, which they called Speedy Service System, and he wanted to make a deal with them to open these restaurants all over the country. The deal was made fairly quickly, and Ray Kroc shares how it came to be in a later interview. At first, the brothers were not interested, but soon agreed when Kroc brought up his offer.
Well, I said, why don't you get somebody to do it? They said, well, we don't know anybody who want to do it. I said, well, how about me? He said, do you want to bother with it? I said, sure.
Kroc signed a contract with the brothers where he is the exclusive distributor to the McDonald's method of fast food. Before he became interested in McDonald's, Ray Kroc was a high school dropout who went through multiple jobs until he decided to become a businessman. He was a paper cup salesman for 16 years and chose the right decisions that increased his success. Kroc was extremely dedicated and became a workaholic.
This led him into another business, and he switched over from selling paper cups to a 5-spindle multi-mixer made by Earl Print that the McDonald brothers will purchase.
After many years of experiences, he understood what people liked and what they didn't. When he heard about the McDonald's business, he knew he had just hit the jackpot. An assembly line for food with burgers? It's a brilliant idea.
People just want more of it. And I've lived quite a number of years, and I know what people like, and they happen to like hamburgers. And I can't give them everything they like, but this one thing I sure can give.
After Kroc was able to get the contract with the brothers, he started his first restaurant in Illinois. The brothers settled for 50%, and Ray Kroc decided to collect 1.9% of the sales from each franchise he opened and sold.
The McDonald's brothers failed to tell Kroc that they had already approved that part of Illinois to a different company. To continue the process of opening his business, he had to buy out their contract for $25,000, but he was already in debt for the construction of his own restaurant. Eventually, he began leasing the land that the McDonald's franchises were on and began actually making a profit. His troubles were not over yet, but by the end of 1960, he was able to successfully open over 200 restaurants.
Then he began national advertising and was the first fast food restaurant ever to go public by the early 1970s.
Ray was doing almost all of the work and was paid practically nothing, while the brothers were barely doing anything and received most of the money. Finally, Kroc became fed up with this and deemed the McDonald's brothers lazy, and he wanted total control over the McDonald's corporation. He planned to purchase the company, including the McDonald's name. He got the brothers to agree to it for the price of $2.7 million in cash each. It was outrageously expensive during this time period. It was paid in 1961, and after taxes, it was equivalent to $1 million to each brother. It was pricey, and he got many loans to do it, but it was well worth it.
Although he was able to obtain the rights, the brothers claimed that the original McDonald's in San Bernardino was not included in the contract. Kroc forced the brothers to rename the restaurant the Big M and open a new restaurant right across the street, and they went out of business.
In the same year, Kroc had already constructed more than 700 McDonald's in 44 states. Not only that, but they went public in April with advertising. The Hamburger University opened to train employees also. During the 1960s, Kroc was able to introduce meals for adults, kids, and families. And finally, Ronald McDonald makes his appearance along with the characters from McDonaldland. The next decade, they went global, entering countries from Japan to Germany, and the Happy Meal was finally introduced.
By the next few years, Kroc and Sonnenborn had begun to enter the stages of growth. Fred Turner soon joined them in the business. The way they ran the business was based on effort and commitment. They would serve the customers faithfully and kept the restaurant meticulously clean.
If you work just for money, you'll never make it. But if you love what you're doing and you always put the customer first, success will be yours. Ray Kroc.
McDonald's has changed multiple cultures and traditions of the world. It has changed the way we eat from home meals and fancy restaurants to a fast food revolution. Also, people don't have to wait as long, and McDonald's is able to deliver that quick meal they need when people are in a rush to work.
They also went through a phase that made food proportions much larger.
The issue of obesity is not entirely caused by McDonald's, but it has forced doctors and scientists to research and discover more about the human body and even find the need to discover some surgical procedures to fight against it.
McDonald's has created a fast food assembly line with all kinds of new equipment and strategies. They also put a lot of research into the chemicals to make their products flavorful, and this idea has been spread throughout the food industry.
McDonald's has changed the image of America and the entire world. It's seen everywhere, to the factories and the turn of the street, and our faces and our cultures.
McDonald's has incorporated itself into the entire world's lives today, whether it is in a passing meal or through charity.
A huge part of our lives, the world of McDonald's has impacted us.
The end.